Hello and welcome to the English Football Podcast Championship Playoff Final special, proudly presented to you by Sport.media. I'm Christopher Chrysostomou, and after 4 years in the wilderness, 4 years after they were relegated from the Premier League, Fulham are back in the Premier League. They joined Wolverhampton Wanderers and Cardiff in the Premier League for the 2018-19 season after their 1-0 victory over Aston Villa in the EFL Playoff Final. It was two teams with contrasting styles of play. We had the pure Fulham, play in a fashion that is what you see from the best teams in the Premier League in terms of just passing the ball around, possession-based, attacking football, to the more pragmatic Aston Villa, who are slower in their build-up and prefer to sit back and then try and counter the opposition. The first half was dominated by Fulham. They had all the play. They had 7 shots to 2, 61% possession, and a pass accuracy of 87%. And from early on in that first half, you could see what Fulham were trying to do. After 12 minutes, Fulham had 100 passes compared to Aston Villa's 24. And it was no surprise in the 23rd minute when a through ball by Ryan Sessegnon, the 17-year-old starlet who's going to be an absolute star of the future, a perfect through ball by him to captain Todd Kearney, who scored the one and only goal in this game. The players sweltered in this game. It was 35 degrees Celsius, and you could tell by the fans weren't happy with the weather. A lot of red faces in the crowd. But as I mentioned, Fulham dominated that first half, and Aston Villa couldn't attain any momentum. They looked old and slow, which are the two things that you can't have when you come up against Fulham. The Aston Villa defence has a combined age of 132 years. And when you got the likes of John Terry and Hutton and Chester and Al Mohammadi in defence against the likes of the young Mitrovic and Sessegnon and even Kamara, who I thought was a standout in the game with his pace and dribbling, it's going to be hard to beat the young, exuberant youth, plus Kearney's passing and moving up the field through midfield. In the second half, it was an entirely different game. The young Jack Grealish, who has so much potential, he dominated for Aston Villa. He had about 3 shots where he should have scored. There was one where he dribbled through the defence and had a one-on-one with the Fulham goalkeeper, but he kicked it straight into the goalkeeper. That should have been a goal. He was harshly treated by the Fulham players, Grealish. He was targeted. They tried roughing him up, and there was one silly challenge by Grealish where he received a yellow card for it. There was also a moment where Fredericks, the right back for Fulham, stomped on Grealish's knee, and it was given as a yellow card. That one's a 50-50. I wouldn't have been disappointed if the referee gave him a red card, and I'm not disappointed that he gave him a yellow card. That's something that the referee could decide on. The other big talking point out of that second half was Dennis O'Doy's sending off in the 70th minute. O'Doy, who is predominantly a fullback but has been playing in the centre-back position at Fulham after Matt Targett arrived and Ryan Sessegnon moved further up the field. He's the type of player that you don't want in the Fulham team next year when they're in the Premier League, because every time I watch him play, he makes a mistake. He's the one that cost them a goal against QPR in the 2-2 draw, I'm pretty sure it was, earlier on in the season, where they were leading by 2 goals and Massimo Luongo set up the QPR revival. He's a pretty good passer at most times, but he does take a lot of risk and that does result in a lot of trouble for the Fulham defence. He also can fall over his own feet and make rash challenges, which he did today. 2 yellow cards saw him receive a red card. Overall, the deserving team won this match. Fulham have been fantastic all season. They were unfortunate not to gain automatic promotion, and that was due to Carter's brilliant form earlier on in the season and their inability to capitalise on the final day. Aston Villa, they would be devastated by this. They spent around £80 million last season on recruiting players, and then this year they've only spent the £2.5 million, but that doesn't consider the free agents that they've brought in John Terry and plus the loan deals for Lewis Graben and Axel Tuanzebes. So they've brought in a lot of experience. They've got a pretty old team. And if you look at the squad that they've got with Ryan Snodgrass on the right and Grealish, they really should have been fighting for automatic promotion this year. And they should have probably finished second in terms of what kind of squad they had at their disposal. Next year, it's going to be hard to see Aston Villa getting into the Premier League next year. There's a lot of talk as to whether John Terry will stay at the club or he might go overseas to a China or United States. Personally, I would like to see John Terry remain at Aston Villa. His leadership there is what they need. They've got Mile Jedinak in central midfield as well, but he looks like he's really worn out now. He can't play an entire match and looked like he was being run to the ground by the Fulham midfield in that first half, particularly. Jack Grealish, we also don't know if he'll be remaining at Aston Villa next year. There's a lot of clubs that want him, and by the form that he's shown this season, he's a player that has matured, and his creativity, running, dribbling, and speed is something that a lot of Premier League clubs will be looking at and wanting to attain. I wouldn't be surprised if he moved to another claret club in West Ham United. This is the type of player they need. They need someone that's got a lot of pace, creativity, and he's young. And I think he would be the kind of player that would suit them. I wouldn't mind seeing him at Fulham. I think he would do well there. But after the treatment he received today, I don't think Fulham is on top of his list of clubs that he would like to go to. Fulham manager Slavisa Jokanovic said after the game that he would like to stay at the club. He has the backing of the owner, but he said that if he does stay at the club, he wants to receive enough funds to secure better players to ensure that they remain in the Premier League next year and are competitive. This is a really exciting time for the Premier League. We've got two teams in Fulham and Wolverhampton Wanderers who play an attacking style of play and like to play on their own terms with different formations to what we usually see in the Championship. Both of them will have high expectations on their performances next year. Just avoiding relegation is the bare minimum for next season. I believe both could push up into mid-table just by the way that they play. I think they play better than half of the Premier League teams in terms of style. It's all about who they can bring in. Fulham will be hoping to keep hold of Ryan Sessegnon. I believe they will keep hold of him because they are in the Premier League now. Captain Todd Kearney should remain there as well. Their midfield's solid. Maybe another one or two players just to add to that midfield depth. Their defence needs a lot of work. Matt Targett has done well at left back whilst being on loan from Southampton. They might try to keep him at the club, but Odoi can't be playing centre-back next year if they are going to do well in the Premier League. And also their other centre-back needs to improve. They're both under 6 foot, both former fullbacks playing in that centre-back pairing position. I think they need to get some solid centre-backs. Up front, Alexander Mitrovic has done well for Fulham since joining in January on loan from Newcastle United. Scored 12 goals in 18 matches. Links up well with the midfield, goes into those deeper positions as a cam and passes the ball around, distributes it well. I heard one of the commentators compare him to Alan Shearer, not in terms of the skill of Alan Shearer, but just the way that he plays and drops deep and passes. The distribution is similar to Alan Shearer. Newcastle may want to keep him, but I think that's the number one target for Fulham. Alexander Mitrovic is the perfect player for Fulham, and they'll try and keep hold of him next year. And that's it for the EFL Championship Playoff Final review. It's been a great year of Championship football. It's probably going to be even better next year. So many teams vying for those promotion spots. We've got Stoke, West Brom, and Swansea dropping down from the Premier League, and they all look like they could get automatic promotion back to the Premier League next year, while Aston Villa will be hoping to contend again. Hopefully we see Steve Bruce there and John Terry. And then also the lesser likes. Bristol City did well early on and then faded after January. Sheffield United were solid. Millwall, Nottingham Forest, could they be on the rise? Brentford, there's a few teams there they could trouble. And Middlesbrough as well. They spent a lot this year, and next year they should be better after one season back in the EFL Championship.